And also a strange one on the front of the Sun. And Peter, maybe we'll start with that since you are here in your capacity as the former police officer. Brueckner, this is the guy who was released recently from another offence that he had committed that put him in prison. He's thought to be one of the suspects in the Madeleine McCann case. He's on the front page. He's walking around, basically, saying, I can solve the scandal of the century. Nobody knows quite what he means, but he's showing off his electronic tag. He's buying phones. He's being sort of whimsical. He's, I would say, behaving in a way which I would say is at least rather suspicious.
Well, this story, actually, in a nutshell, is released prisoner buys a phone.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's it. There is a bit more to it than that. But when I read this, of course, the former detective in me can't help but get a little bit annoyed.
Yes.
Because had I had anything to do with this investigation from a policing perspective, which I haven't, of course, I would be livid because the whole plan for me would have been on the day of Brueckner's release, you put him under 24/7 surveillance, technical surveillance, physical surveillance, and the best in the world will do it so that he will not know they are there. He would not know they were there, okay? And you would follow him continually, okay? Morning, noon and night. And in support of that traditional physical surveillance, you would also deploy technical surveillance. So wheresoever he puts down his roots and starts to live, you get in there and you bug it. And you also do technical surveillance on phones, laptops, iPads, anything like that. So his every word and deed is seen or watched or overheard. That is what I would have done with a plot, with a plan to see does he actually say anything whereby he compromises himself. This story, of course, if that kind of operation had been launched, really scuppers it. Because Brueckner can go online and read The Sun today and know that that phone he's bought would potentially be known about to the authorities. So what would he do? Ditch it and get another one. You see, that would have been a way in. If this story hadn't featured in the newspapers, the old Bill, having followed him, would then go into the shop, get the IMEI number of that phone, get the number of that phone, and thereafter do all the technical on it. But of course this story has scuppered any prospect of that. I'm not blaming the Sun for that. They're doing their job.
Maybe he knows that as well.
They're doing their job.
But maybe he knows that as well.
Yes, possibly. Possibly he's playing a game. You know, he's a pretty sick-minded individual, whatever way you look at it.
I mean, he's a criminal, let's face it.
Yeah, he is a rapist.
You know, whether or not he's involved with the Maddie case, you know, anybody who goes into a shop to buy a phone, starts showing off his electronic tag, and starts telling random people he doesn't know, they want me dead. You know, he's clearly up to no good, is he?
Indeed, and credit to the Sun for doing what they've done, but if it had been the old days, if I'd been a part of this investigation, I would have gone to the Sun and say, please do not publish his story. Do not tip him the wink that we now know what phone he's got because we bugged it, okay, and the handset and all of that, and we'll put you at the front of the queue if ever the story breaks that we want to know about, you know, in that kind of way that we dealt with journalists some years ago. But alas, that of course will now not happen. But he clearly is going to be followed and watched by the media, maybe the police as well, and we'll have to see. What we can say, though, is over 18 years after Maddie disappeared, there's been some pretty poor detective work because no one's ever been caught for that.
No, indeed. And interestingly, there's two spreads inside. One of them say cops in Germany are on high alert after Madeleine McCann suspect Christian Brueckner tried to buy an untraceable mobile phone while carrying an ID card that could allow him to flee his home country, because supposedly he's got an ID card which has not been updated. That should have been updated to say that under his bail conditions he's not allowed to travel outside of Germany, but it doesn't say that.
Yes, well, once again, are there holes in the plan that should have been hatched for his release? They had months to get all their ducks in a row with regards to his release. Months and months and months. So a properly led, professional, covert investigation into this man would not have been the most challenging thing to do. It would have required a bit of nous and some resources and determination, but this all appears to be scuppered.
Yeah, interesting, fascinating story. No doubt it will fascinate us for you know, several months to come as his movements attract. Front page of the Daily Telegraph, Rachel Reeves told to launch a tax raid on pensioners. This will please you. The Resolution Foundation, right, one of these organisations riddled with sort of rich boys and girls who like sitting around telling everyone how they should be living their lives, and basically what they want the government to do and what they want Rachel Reeves to do is to come after anybody that's got any kind of money at all. These are the same people who recommended that she go after the farmers for their inheritance tax, and to go after everybody else who's got anything that they've made of their lives, so that we can pay for the feckless and those who don't have any wherewithal to make any money of their own. Yeah,
the Resolution Foundation, one of those think tanks, who sometimes appear to me to be a little bit hard of thinking, really.
Yes, they do.
To be perfectly honest with you.
I'd like to make a New Year's resolution to do away with the Resolution Foundation.
Yes, I think that would have my support, that's for sure. So their plan, because of course they have links to the government, so we're told, right, would be for Reeves to reduce national insurance by 2p, and then add it to income tax. Can you imagine the furore if income tax is to go up by 2p and the cost of that to people in their pay packets? It would be astonishing. And of course, let's remember, Rachel Reeves said this government will not raise income tax, right, on hard-working people or whatever her phrase was. People. So this would fly in the face of it. And what is the budget now? 6-7 weeks away? But I think we can all pretty much be guaranteed there will be tax rises of some description. But of course, the headline screams that it's a tax raid aimed at pensioners. Well, on the 11th of December this year, Mike, I become an old age pensioner.
Official.
And as you said in your introduction, my wife and I have worked very hard, paid off our mortgage, and we've got a couple of quid to help us in later life. And we are exactly the kind of people that the politics of envy, as displayed and mastered by the Labour Party, are coming after.
Of course they are. Because, you know, they can. Because they go, hang on a minute, how come you've got some money and these other people haven't got any at all? So we better take some of your money and give it to them. Even though they haven't done what you did, and they haven't worked all their lives, and they haven't actually even bothered to try and raise any money for their own families.
6.5 million people in the UK. Let's just ponder that figure for a moment. 6.5 million released at the weekend in the media, people on out-of-work benefits. That is astonishing. And of course it's going to feed into some other things that we discussed this morning. How on earth can that possibly be sustainable? No wonder this country is skint. No wonder it's going down a pan. This Labour government can't do anything when it comes to reforming welfare, because all their lunatic lefties won't let them do it. Just like that happened on the previous occasion. They can't take any money off them, when they tried to reform the welfare system. The lunatic lefties won't have it. The same lunatic lefty MPs that would call me privileged because my wife and I have worked very hard to pay off our mortgage. Labour MP wrote to a fellow that I know, sent me copies of the emails between this MP up in Nottinghamshire, where he described this bloke who, like me and my wife, have worked very hard, paid off his mortgage, and he called him privileged to own his home.
Of course he is. Absolutely ridiculous. Apparently, according to this piece in Telegraph, 8.7 million people above the state pension age are already paying income tax this financial year, according to figures from a former pensions minister, Steve Webb. And now they're saying that the clear agenda seems to be to take more money, and listen to the way that they use words, right? To take more money from those who are not employees, i.e. at the expense of directors, landlords, shareholders, the self-employed and pensioners. Now, when you say the self-employed, an awful lot of people in this country are self-employed.
You're speaking of one.
They're working people. How are they not working people? But they're still employed, they're still making a living, they're still paying taxes, and they are still as worthy a recipient of anything as people who are employees. What's the difference?
Exactly. I'm self-employed and have been for 25 years. And I pay my taxes. My accounts are done every year, pay my taxes, rather a lot of money, but I don't mind. If I've earned it, I'll happily pay my taxes.
Up to a point.
Yeah, I'd be happier if I thought my taxes were being properly used in this country, instead of having public services that waste so much money. People in public service dealing with public money as if it's something they can fritter and not keep a very close eye on and treasure every penny and be effective with it and don't waste it. But we've got billions going down the Swanee. We've got billions going to the undeserving. And who's going to pay the price if this happens?
We are.
The workers.
Yeah, exactly.
The workers.
Not the people they call workers, though, because the people they call workers work in the public sector and they all get a pay rise because they deserve it, you see, because they're doing a service to the nation as opposed to what you and I are doing, which is also doing a service to the nation by supplying them with a load of tax money. Rachel Reeves has been busy, though. She was out yesterday talking about a second runway at Gatwick. Let's have a look and see what she has to say about
Government are backing a second runway here at Gatwick. That's in addition to our commitments to a third runway at Heathrow, small modular reactors, a new nuclear power station in Suffolk, backing energy projects and transport projects right around the country. But this extra runway at Gatwick will mean that people going on holiday will have a greater choice of destinations. It will mean lower costs for a family holiday, and it will also mean more good jobs, paying decent wages through this injection of cash into our economy. We said as a government we would back the builders and not the blockers, and that is exactly what we are doing with this announcement.
She's doing that thing again where you smile as you same time as you talk, because if you do that, it looks like you're not worried at all about your job, and the whole fact that the economy is going down the gurgle, it doesn't matter because you're smiling, you see. Because people are really stupid because they see you smiling and they think, well, you must be happy in your job. It's going really well. You know what I mean? By the way, I don't know why she thinks more people are going to be able to go on more holidays with more destinations, because they won't have any money left.
And I don't know why holidays are going to be cheaper, which she claimed.
Why would that happen?
How's that going to happen?
No. Also, I've been to Gatwick fairly recently, and, you know, they can't manage one runway, never mind two. Can you imagine the chaos there's going to be down there?
I mean, another runway, more flights, in essence, good idea, probably good for the economy.
You would
but
think.
It's not a new runway, they're just moving the reserve runway 12 metres, apparently.
Yeah, they've already got it.
Yeah.
So it's a typical Labour trick, isn't it? They're sort of opening a new runway, but it's already there.
Yes.
So
moving it 12 yards, 12 metres. Sticking a bit of drainage, obviously, because, you know, the runways have to drain.
And they'll have to build a new terminal, presumably, won't they?
Well, there's already two down there.
There's two down there, yeah.
I mean, I was there last week and there was plenty of unused capacity, should we say. I mean, when our flight landed, which was about 6 o'clock in the evening, there was only one baggage doodah being used, and there's another half a dozen or so lying there dormant.
Well, yeah. How quickly did you get your bags, though? Because I came back from New York into Gatwick, right? Got to the baggage counter and the carousel, and everybody just stood there for 45 minutes before it even moved.
Yeah, quickly is not a word
45 minutes.
Yeah.
So when they got twice as many planes coming in, how's that going to work?
Yes.
I mean, it does make you worry.
Well, then, of course, the baggage handler unions, I'm sure, will want to... flex
they'll
their
get a piece of the action,
They'll want a few quid. They'll hold the government to ransom, like so many unions are doing at the moment.
Absolutely.
And they'll get a pay rise, and our increased taxes might have to pay for it.
And then they'll probably start putting airport duty onto you because, you know, they'll have to pay for the extra money they've got to pay to the unions. So it's not really great news for anyone, this, is it?
Yeah.
Starting to go off the idea. Maybe fly from Heathrow. That's not any better, though. Right, listen, it's coming up to 20 minutes past 6. Peter Bleksley is here. We've got loads to talk about. Donald Trump's talking about paracetamol. We've got a little clip for you we'll show you in a minute. Also, GPs have been told they must stop dismissing patient fears. Also, my favourite story of the day, and this one will come as a bit of a surprise to you, Peter. On the front page of The Guardian. Do you know there's been some British-Egyptian human rights activist called Alaa Abd El Fattah who's been in prison in Egypt, but Keir Starmer's been fighting to get him released, right? Now, do you know what he's in prison for?
Please inform me.
A Facebook post. Right? But Keir Starmer doesn't like people being put in prison for Facebook posts, unless, of course, he's putting them in prison for Facebook posts.
And Lucy Conley, anyone?
I've spotted a bit of an anomaly here, because apparently he's been fighting tooth and nail intensive lobbying by the UK government to pressurise Egypt's National Human Rights Council to release this guy, because he should never have been locked up in the first place.
There's a familiar ring to this kind of story, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so.
I think there may be others. Let me think. Lucy, what's her name? Lucy Connolly.
Oh,
she
yeah.
got locked up.
She got locked up for
a post on social media. Yeah.
Which she removed.
Yes.
But then did he 3 years in prison?
Well, she actually served about 10 months, I think, but the original sentence was 31 months. So, yeah, well, strange.
Yeah, but that's normal though, because you get sentenced to 7 years in prison. You get out after 2, don't you?
Yeah. Well, of course, because this government has had to release thousands of people back onto the streets. Of course.
Apparently, Keir Starmer actually telephoned the Egyptian government to ask them to release him, as did Jonathan Pole, who of course is the guy that sold off the Chagos Islands, as did Foreign Secretary David Lammy. So they've really got behind this guy.
Well, they
unusual,
certainly have, haven't they? Just. Goodness me. Was he Palestinian by any chance?
No, he's Egyptian, I think.
Egyptian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he walks like an Egyptian anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
6:21, we'll be back after this. Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:25. I'm Mike Graham. Got plenty of messages coming in. I'm with Peter Bleksley this morning. Morning, Mike and Peter. It says, Peter in Suffolk, probably a new runway to accommodate Miliband and all our other net zero ministers while they fly around the world. Well, I mean, they're supposedly going to be, they're going to try and make it so that it's impossible to block these runway extensions, which doesn't really sit, I would have thought, with their green policies, but we shall see. Here's one from Alan. It says, looking forward to another great show again today. Even if Nigel Farage's rhetoric doesn't come to fruition, at least we've got a politician who is saying what desperately needs to be said in regards to legal and illegal immigration. This situation must be addressed, says Alan in Forest of Dean. Well, let's talk about that, because front page of the Times, predictably, I suppose, you've got all the usual suspects saying, oh, you know, the numbers are not great. The fact is that Nigel Farage has uncovered in a big press conference yesterday the absolute kind of depth and kind of cost of all of these migrants. 3.8 million people who came to this country. He calls it the Boris wave after Brexit, because Boris encouraged all sorts of sort of global, what you might call immigration policies, right?
Non-EU citizens.
Yeah.
And they flooded into this country. And the next 2 or 3 years, many of them will be eligible to apply to be permanent residents in the UK.
Yeah.
And that in itself is something that was thrown up through yesterday's press conference. He is undoubtedly, Mr. Farage, the finest political communicator in the land.
Yes, no question.
By a country mile.
Yeah.
He hits the spots that others don't. And he is, of course, courageous enough to say things that others won't.
Right.
But increasingly what I'm noticing is how Mr. Youssef sits by his side.
Yeah.
And he is always of fairly stern demeanour, straight-faced, very much on the facts and figures. And Mr. Farage often defers to him, doesn't he, when he's speaking.
Right.
And in comes Mr. Youssef, and I quite like a stern, kind of serious sort of person in politics.
Right. You don't want the Rachel Reeves smile, do you?
No.
You know, you don't sit there smiling telling you that.
No, I quite like stern people in politics who know what they're
serious
talking about.
people.
Yeah, exactly. And realise that they are dealing with very serious matters.
And he comes from a business background, places like Goldman Sachs, whether you like it or not. You know, they're not messing around with numbers, because you get the numbers wrong at Goldman Sachs, you're out of a job.
Boom, you're out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he rose to a senior level within that bank. I mean, this man clearly knows a lot about numbers, and it's very interesting to watch them present as a partnership, as a team. Very, very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Now, I think he said what so many millions of people in this country are thinking yesterday, that this has got completely out of hand. This is a country in severe financial difficulties, chronic financial difficulties, and the current mishandling of the economy by Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer and this Labour government is not making things better, it's making things worse. There has to be a firm grip taken on immigration and the welfare system. And of course they conflated the two yesterday and gave these figures, which has given huge cause for concern.
Yes, because for years we were told, were we not, oh, the thing is about the migrants coming into this country, they don't get access to benefits. If they're coming here to work, they get to work, except they didn't say they get to bring loads of dependents with them who all get access to benefits. They didn't say when people came for student visas that they would get benefits, but of course they finish their course, they go on benefits, they stay in the country, they overstay their visa, they become asylum seekers. This racket has been going on for years. Let's have a look at what Nigel said yesterday about scrapping indefinite leave to remain.
We will abolish indefinite leave to remain as a category in this country. The 800,000 people that will get indefinite leave to remain unless this policy is revoked tend to be young, tend to be low skilled. They are going to be a huge burden on the state. What we do know is that 1 in 6 claimants of universal credit alone today, 1 in 6 is a foreign-born national.
See, that is a terrible number, isn't it? 1 in 6 is a foreign-born national.
Yeah, absolutely. It truly is. And I commend Mr Farage and Mr Youssef yesterday for highlighting these factors. You can imagine the usual suspects have thrown their toys around and got a bit upset about it and have thrown the same useless, tiresome, nonsense accusations
Well, the Guardian
around.
front page headline says, outrage as Farage threatens mass deportation of illegal immigrants. But nowhere in the actual story is there anybody quoted saying it's an outrage.
Yeah.
They've decided it's an outrage.
Of course.
But they haven't got anybody actually saying it.
Yeah, and all the usual suspects have. I was looking at social media on the way in this morning, and the usual suspects who I'm not even going to bother naming because they're such cretinous fools are really getting their knickers in a twist over all of this.
Yeah.
It is refreshing to hear politicians speaking about the major issues that affect people. Unfortunately, it's not politicians who are in power. That's the problem.
Yeah.
There's some interesting questions. If you go to the Express today, for example, there's an analysis done on what Farage said yesterday. It features on page 9. If you'll just bear with me one moment while I go to that page. And it's written by Jonathan Walker, who is the Express's Whitehall editor. And he talks about, we'll have to wait and see what happens with regards to the figures, the facts. And on that very note, Mr Youssef said yesterday that so many of the stats which we really need to see are actually withheld by the Home Office, for example, by DWP. They've got the data. They will not declare it. They will not release it into the public domain, because if they did, I think the outrage would be enormous. Absolutely enormous.
Well, I mean, at one point, I think Nigel Farage said yesterday, we're not a food bank for the world. Because we shouldn't be, should we?
No, of course we shouldn't be. We should, but let's rewind, if we may. And I believe it was the wonderful Winston Churchill that said that the social security, as it was sort of called in those days, should be a net below which nobody should fall and everybody should rise. And that's right. It needs to be there for people in their moments of trouble, which happen to so many people.
As a safety net,
But it's a net, and you bounce back from that. And it's not a lifestyle choice. And the harsh reality is that for some people who want to sit around on their sofas in their urine-stained jogging bottoms all day long, it's a lifestyle choice. They choose to live on benefits. They are bone idle, they won't work, they probably will never work, and something needs to be done about people like that, the unwilling.
Indeed. And many of those people are natural citizens of this country. They were born here, and let's not forget there's plenty of those people around. But however, what he's talking about as well is that we shouldn't be a magnet for people to come from other countries because the benefits are so good that they can come and live like that, if they want to. Let's have a look at what he said about restricting access to benefits.
We've given you full details. None of the 800,000 plus that came here under the Boris wave that will be available to apply for indefinite leave to remain over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, none of them will be given indefinite leave to remain. None of them will be given access to the UK's benefit system, and none of them will be able to bring dependents. That, I think, is quite a lot of very exact policy detail.
And of course, as per usual, the usual suspects, as you would say, were sort of making out that these are not properly costed figures. These are not, policies that are going to work in practice. Which they always say every time Nigel Farage says anything. But of course, we haven't exactly got an incredibly efficient government acting at the moment in these areas, and neither have we ever had one, probably for the best part of 25 years.
And as was pointed out by Mr Farage and Mr Youssef yesterday, so many of the data and detailed facts and figures that we need will not be released. They will not release it because they know there would be utter outrage if people knew the length and depth and the full expense of people coming to this country, taking the mickey, abusing the system, and being a net loss rather than a net gain.
Yes.
If we had all those accurate facts and figures, there would be utter outrage.
Right. And all of these people who are critics of this kind of policy, who think that we are, a welcoming country, we should not be, nasty to immigrants. Well, what's their alternative exactly? Just to wait until we completely run out of all the money we've got, and that people like you and I ended up being taxed even more to pay for even more people coming here from even more countries because they fancy it.
Yes, and let's not ignore, though, the dilution of the very essence of Britishness, which happens when you have hundreds of thousands of people coming to this country who were not born here, not educated here, not raised in the culture and the very essence of being British, appreciating what it is to be British, understanding it, embracing it, loving it, and wanting to make it better.
Yeah.
Without that kind of thing, I don't want anybody that doesn't buy into that being here. End of story.
Exactly right. To wit, we can talk about what we talked about a lot yesterday, which was Keir Starmer's recognition of Palestine over the weekend. Piece at the front page of The Telegraph today. So Keir Starmer will tell Palestinian officials they must stop paying the families of terrorists before Britain can open full diplomatic relations. He's facing a backlash over his decision to recognise Palestine, and he's now going to insist that the Palestinian Authority should end its, wait for it, pay-to-slay policy of handing out money to the families of martyrs who were killed for attacks on Israelis. So this is a guy who's granted permanent status of a state to Palestine without saying this to them beforehand. So he's given them status, and then he's gone, he's recognised them as a state, but then he's gone, would you mind not killing Israelis and stop paying people to kill Israelis and giving them, martyr status, because that's not very nice.
Well, as Prime Minister of our house... Well, actually, I'm not my wife.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Let's just imagine I am Prime Minister of my house. I now recognise the state of ding dong ding dong bum, right?
Of course you do.
That's as relevant as what Starmer has done with Palestine.
It is.
It means absolutely nothing what I've just said. Nothing.
Except it does empower Hamas, and it does empower the terrorists who think they've won.
With what Starmer's done, most definitely. Why on earth would you say something which Hamas immediately come out and celebrate and regard as a victory? Why on earth would you do that when there are currently 48 hostages held in tunnels, caves, hovels, starved, not bestowed one shred of humanity?
Coming up to 2 years on.
Yes.
Right? Unbelievable stuff. And they celebrated, by the way, yesterday by shooting dead in the head 3 men blindfolded on their knees in the middle of Gaza because they thought they were Israeli collaborators.
Yes.
These are the people we've given, a nation status to.
Yes, they have been rewarded.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly. Starmer, this foolish, idiotic man, has done such a ridiculous thing that why would anybody do anything that Hamas are going to celebrate? Doesn't that tell you that what you've done is fundamentally wrong?
He chooses to do it on the same day as Jewish New Year falls, Rosh Hashanah. He's also criticised this morning because yesterday he had the gall to put out a tweet wishing Jewish people in this country a Happy New Year, after having recognised their sworn enemies, people who have sworn to kill them and wipe them off the face of the map.
Yes, whose sole purpose in life...
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
...is to exterminate the entire Jewish race. That's Hamas's stated aim. And Starmer goes and recognises the state of Palestine, which actually, as things stand, doesn't exist. Now, there may be a time, right? Here I am, wildly optimistic, hoping that at some stage peace can come to the Middle East. I don't know why it should, because it hasn't done in my lifetime, so I don't know why it's going to. But just let me get wildly, ludicrously optimistic and say at some point in the future there is a window for a two-state solution. I don't think that'll ever happen, but just imagine that it might do. Then perhaps there may become a time to recognise the state of Palestine. But now is not the time.
Now is definitely
While
not the time.
48 hostages, you never, ever do anything that is going to please or appease people who take hostages and regard that as a legitimate political tactic.
Exactly. Absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Kitty.
Hi Mike, Kitty from Kent here. Don't really seem to be able to call in with any positive thoughts recently. My latest thought is that this government and Keir Starmer and his ministers, they are traitors. If you look at their litany of disasters over the last 14, 15 months, the lies, the bribes, the corrupt ministers, Chagos, Lucy Connolly, Palestine, two-tier everything, on and on and on, and I probably haven't even mentioned some of their worst offences. Have a lovely day. Hopefully I'll have some good news to call in about soon. Love the show.
Kitty, thank you very much indeed. There will be some good news. We've got some good news. We've got some stories for you that you won't believe, right? Bristol Council apparently wants you to stop calling people pregnant women. They want you to start calling them people with ovaries, right? We'll get into that. 2 million more people are going to get their bins collected only once every 3 weeks, all right? And also, there's going to be a suggestion that you should flush your loo with rainwater.
Yes.
So you better get collecting it, if I were you, because obviously Christmas is coming and, you know, you'll have a lot of people in the house, so you'll need a lot of rainwater. Anyway, listen, we'll be back with that, plus Donald Trump and the whole paracetamol row. We'll bring it to you next. Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 6:43. Peter Bleksley's here with me. I've got this from Titch, who says, Mike, so far Epstein has done for Ghislaine Maxwell, Andy, Mandy and Fergie, all Brits. When will any Americans be exposed? It's a good point, isn't it?
It is.
Supposedly all these American politicians were down there all the time, including Bill Clinton. Nobody seems to have fallen for whatever it is that he was selling. But let's have a look at America. Donald Trump yesterday in what can only be described as a kind of slightly odd press conference. We're not quite sure why. We'll maybe explore it later on in the show. But here's Donald Trump telling people why paracetamol shouldn't be taken by pregnant women.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of acetaminophen, is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that.
I mean, the front page of Telegraph, Peter, says Donald Trump has hailed an amazing new drug that could be used to treat autism. So he suggested a different drug, which is called leucovorin, typically used in cancer treatment to counter the side effects of other drugs, could be an answer to the autism condition. I'm not quite sure why he's come out and said this now. I don't know whether there's any scientific proof to it. You know, front page of the Times says pregnant women have been told in this country paracetamol is safe after US warning. So it's a bit of a weird story, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a clear and unequivocal statement here in that article from the Times, which was issued by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency.
Yeah.
So it's the United Kingdom's medicines watchdog. And in response to that, those comments from Donald Trump, this watchdog said, there is no evidence that taking paracetamol during pregnancy causes autism in children. Right. So that flies very much in the face of what Donald Trump said. It is my understanding, although of course I have zero medical qualifications, that fever in pregnant women can be potentially damaging to a fetus. So I would urge anybody who's pregnant and is contemplating taking paracetamol to either take the clear advice of the agency or contact a medical professional.
I mean, some people in this country are saying it's all a bit fear-mongering in the US over the link between paracetamol use and autism. Dr. Alison Cave, Chief Safety Officer at the MHRA, says patient safety is our top priority. There is no evidence that taking paracetamol during pregnancy causes autism in children. But it's one of those stories that will worry people, isn't it? Because when the President of the United States of America comes out and says we're going to tell the FDA that this is not going to be a recommendation that we're going to make, people will take that seriously.
Yeah,
I have no way of knowing whether it's safe or not. RFK Jr., who of course is the kind of the health advocate over in the US in the government, had this to say:
research has revealed that folate deficiency in a child's brain can lead to autism. We have also identified an exciting therapy that may benefit large numbers of children who suffer from autism. Peer-reviewed literature has documented that up to 60% of folate-deficient children with ASD can have improved verbal communications if given leucovorin.
I mean, he's not the guy you'd want to be talking about improved verbal communication, really, is he? I don't wish to be unkind.
No, it is an unfortunate affliction that he's got.
Yeah. He had a worm in his brain, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he really? Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway. Here's Caroline Levitt, who is, of course, the White House press spokesperson on prescribing Antifa. That's not prescribing, that's proscribing.
Antifa is going to be designated a domestic terrorist organization. The president intends to sign that executive order very soon as it's drafted, as soon as today, later this afternoon. And this is something the president campaigned on because we have seen a rise in violence perpetuated by Antifa radical people across this country who subscribe to this group. And unfortunately, it's gone widely uncovered by many in the legacy media. It also went completely ignored by the previous administration. Not anymore.
So that's a good move, I think, isn't it?
This young woman is a communications powerhouse.
Isn't she brilliant?
She's astonishing.
Yeah.
And I've seen her absolutely rinse journalists when they've asked daft questions.
Right.
And her organisational skills, when she says jump, people say how high.
And she's also on top of every single question she gets asked. She doesn't, she just bats everything away, she deals with it. You know, she knows she's got so much going on, and yet she seems to always be on top of it.
An extremely capable young lady.
Yeah, brilliant.
And Antifa, well, if they get prescribed in America, that will be very, very interesting indeed. Because, of course,
these are the people that turn up with sort of baseball bats and masked, thugs.
The anti-fascists.
Yeah, the anti-fascists, the people who turn up sometimes in a slightly lesser form at some of these migrant protests here in the UK.
But there's a relevance here, a very recent relevance to matters in the UK. Let's remember, on the 5th of July, this government prescribed Palestine action.
Yes.
Okay, not long after that, there was 500 of them arrested in Parliament Square, and well done to the Met Police for that. Then a couple of weeks later, 900 were arrested. Okay, I mean, astonishing operation just to do that, to deal with those kind of numbers and arrest and process those kind of people. You know, I'm swift to chide the police when they get it wrong.
Sure.
But on that occasion, I think the Met Police deserve considerable credit. But is that linked to what Starmer has done by recognising the state of Palestine?
Well,
I think so.
Yes.
We know he's doing it to appease the far left wing of his party.
Yeah.
I think he's doing it to appease those people in the hope that it will stop them flocking to Parliament Square, sitting on the ground with their banners and their...
But it won't, will it?
Well, we shall have to wait and see, won't we? Because I'm sure the Met have had a whisper in the Home Secretary's ear about this, saying it's not sustainable. We can't do it forever, possibly. We'll have to wait and see. I think,
and there's also, I think, a legal challenge going through the courts as well, isn't there? Where the lawyers have taken up their case and said, you know, what you shouldn't have done was make them a criminal organisation. because that's not going to work. But, you know, as you say, it's all mired in madness. Let's have a look at a story from Bristol City Council, which is in the Telegraph. You probably would expect Bristol City Council to be quite left-wing, because they are. They've been accused of virtue signalling madness because they want to replace sex-based terms with gender-neutral language, including legally defining sex as biological, misgender, trans people. Right? They also say they want to do away with the word maternity, because they prefer to replace it with paternity, which is actually incorrect. They want to demand support for biological men who want to chest feed babies, right? And they also want you to stop calling people pregnant. They want you to call them people with ovaries.
I'm just aghast. And I'll tell you what really irritates me about all this absolute wokery nonsense is that somebody is being paid out of the public purse to come up with this nonsense. They will be a public employee, so they'll work for the council. I'd like to know what their salary is. Because
would be reasonable, I bet.
Because the people of Bristol, or maybe even us, are paying for that through taxes, whether they be national or local. Someone's being paid to come up with such utter drivel.
Nonsense. Exactly right. It's absolutely ridiculous. Completely mad. But Bristol City Council, you would be expected to get that from them. Here's another one for you. This is in The Sun, page 11. The Ghost of Christmas Farce. A stage adaptation of A Christmas Carol has got a woke trigger warning saying that it features ghosts and themes of poverty.
I mean, really?
I mean, well, it would, wouldn't it? Worried theatre boss has also warned the festive classic tackles isolation, social responsibility, greed and death.
There's some irony here, because the article's written by a man called Richard Moriarty, right? Okay, which is surely not lost on anybody.
No.
Shouldn't his name title come with a trigger warning?
He might have to change it.
Yeah,
absolutely right.
It's just absolute, utter garbage. I had the great pleasure of being taken on my birthday a couple of years ago to watch the Royal Shakespeare Company do it in at Stratford, and it was absolutely brilliant. And guess what?
It's a fantastic play, isn't it, Christmas Carol?
Yeah, Dickens. I mean, Dickens, he's just an absolute joy of the world, wasn't he, Charles Dickens? And for this, well... Oh, hell in a handcart. Are we all going there? Are we all heading in the same direction?
Well, you won't be wanting to go to Wetherspoons in Surrey Quays on your way there, because on page 23 of The Sun, this actually started, because I started reporting on this back in the days of COVID. This started in COVID times, when all the kind of millennials and the Gen Zers and the Gen Xers, whatever they are, couldn't stand at a bar and order a drink. So they all had to stand behind each other in a queue, forming themselves 1 metre apart so that they didn't actually upset anybody. Apparently Wetherspoons has now actually made it official. Gen Z drinkers are told to form an orderly queue, just like in a coffee shop. I wouldn't drink in a place like that.
Wetherspoons are largely to blame for this in the first place, because, sadly, the role of barman, barmaid, whatever they get called these days, a quality bar person,
bar steward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, met a few of them in my time. Right, a proper landlord or landlady or member of bar staff who runs a pub actually doesn't need people to queue, because they've got their wits about them, and they know who's going to be served next. They know it, because they know who came in, who's in front, whether they're standing to the right, to the left, wherever they're standing. They know. But because the role of bar staff has been demeaned over the years, it's become downtrodden, the wages are suppressed, they don't get paid what they should do, okay? People are just robotic. They just serve pints now and hand them over. You don't get that little bit of chat with a bartender. You know, so many pubs, free houses have all disappeared. They're essentially managed houses where people have not got an investment in making that pub profitable. And this is part of, generally speaking, the downturn in service in pubs.
You know, I was in a pub not far from here a few months ago, just across the street, and there was a whole bunch of us. And we were celebrating somebody's birthday, I can't remember. Anyway, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, people were starting to come in from work, and the bartender, who was a bit chippy, at one point said to me, "Would you mind moving away from the bar?" I said, "Yeah, I would mind moving away from the bar. I'm standing at the bar. That's where I'm standing." And he's like, "Well, you're not supposed to stand there, you're in the way." I said, well, a guy's coming from behind me, he can reach around me and get a drink that way. That's what we do. That's what you call standing at the bar.
Are you familiar with the expression, young man, propping up the bar.
Yeah, which I've done for many a year.
Indeed,
in
likewise.
all sorts of cities around the world.
Yes.
You know, in fact, I don't like sitting down when I drink, so I like to prop up the bar. It's where I like to be.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, in the end, he gave up because we were just like, we're not moving, mate. Don't get, you know, monkeys, what you think I'm going to do. And I'm not moving.
Again, you see, it's a decline in the standards of bar staff, unfortunately, which is going to lead to people queuing. So what happens when the queue's really long? You're going to stand outside the pub.
That's what I used to do in COVID. They used to go snaking around the block. It's unbelievable. Anyway, let's get a voice note. We're running late. Steve, on the runway at Gatwick.
Steve from Barnsley. Labour trying to make it look like they're doing things now in a good way. Runway at Gatwick. Why do they not dedicate this runway at Gatwick for the migrant planes out of the UK? Then they will be hitting two birds with one stone, because they will be looking good in the public eye, but also the green factor, as that runway will never get used. What a set of plonkers.
Yeah, I'm afraid Steve absolutely nailed it there. It's horrendous.